In this video, I want to share with you a story, and you'll probably find it hard to believe, but you can rest assured it's an absolutely true story. Back in 1986, I started out in business at the age of 23. And in 87 or 88, my best friend from UCD came back from New Zealand, where he was a stud manager, and he suggested that I go out to the south side, speak with a lad out there who was in a similar business to my business. My business was a newsagent's stroke convenience store. This was started in 1986, so it was long before the whole notion of convenience stores and so on became a thing. So I went out one Saturday morning and I met this guy. So I go out on the Saturday morning anyway to meet your man, and just to put it in context, my best friend in UCD was from Mullingar, and I coincidentally went to school in Mullingar. I went to a boarding school there in Mullingar. And the chap that he was asking me to go out and have a word with, he was from Mullingar but had gone to college in a boarding school actually in Kildare, in Clongowes. And he had gone to Trinity and did a BBS, that's a Bachelor of Business Studies. And I had gone to UCD and I did a commerce degree, a Bachelor of Commerce, so the degrees were pretty similar. So I went out anyway on the Saturday morning. It was 1987 or 1988. I know it was shortly after, while I was in Glasnevin, and I started in Glasnevin on 6th of December 1986. But I went out anyway and I met your man, and he was in a similar business to mine. He was a convenience store, stroke newsagents. He was at Walkinstown. I was in Glasnevin. I was at Hart's Corner beside the Brian Brew pub, famous pub. They're owned by Hennigan's. And it features in, I think, Ulysses, and a reference to it in James Joyce's Ulysses. But anyway, I went out to your man and I spent half an hour with him, and we had a good old chat in the way that young men do, trying to make their way and trying to get on in life and improve themselves and improve their lot. Now, 1986, 87, 88 was a really, really bad time in terms of the economy. It was a serious recession in 86, 87, 88. And I can remember interest rates going through the roof. There was 3 general elections in the space of about 15 months. And there was talk about the IMF coming in. There was talk about devaluing. I think the pound was or the punt was in the situation was our currency at the time. There was catastrophic sort of experiences and events, which Charlie Haughey was involved in, which gave the rise to the name Goobu, or the phrase Goobu, grotesque, unbelievable, bizarre, unprecedented. So it was a strange time, and interest rates went to 16 and 22% for a period, and it was a frightening time. But anyway, myself and my brother, who had started off in business, we were going nicely. So I go to your man in Walkinstown anyway. As I say, it's a similar background to me. He went to Trinity, he did a business studies degree, I did a commerce degree. He was from Mullingar. I went to school in Mullingar. He actually went to school in Kildare, coincidentally. So we chatted away and we both agreed one thing. Neither of us wanted to be accountants. We were doing commerce, we were doing business studies, but most of our colleagues, most of our class would have been going to take accountancy apprenticeships. Neither of us wanted to do that because neither of us, well, we had different views. I certainly had a view that I was an entrepreneur. I was young, but I came from a family of entrepreneurs. It was in my blood, and I wanted to be a player, not a scorekeeper. That's the way I viewed it. And I didn't pursue the accountancy thing and this other entrepreneurship, the convenience store business, property development and so on was going well. But I met your man anyway, and we spent 45 minutes to an hour chatting away. He was complaining and whinging about how bad business was, about staff ripping him off, about the customers ripping him off, about the nature of the business and so on. I discovered then that he had a leasehold property, and he may even have had 2 leasehold properties very, very close to one another. And I can remember well that Saturday going back across the city from Walkinstown to Glasnevin, very, very satisfied with myself because my business was going very well. I was very happy with it. I had good staff. I was happy with the punters. Business was going up, and I had a freehold property, not a leasehold. I didn't have to worry about rent, and I had some serious appreciation to experience in terms of property increased values if the market took off. And eventually the market did take off. And so I had that upside, and I had the trading, and it was great. But I discovered afterwards then that fella, even though both of us had sworn that we'd never go into an accountancy firm, and that wasn't for us, he actually quit shortly afterwards, and he went into an accountancy firm, and between the jigs and the reels, he became personal assistant to Tony Ryan, the founder of Ryanair, and he was sent out to Dublin Airport. And one of the first things that he did when he went out to Dublin Airport was to carry out a review of Ryanair. And his advice to Tony Ryan was to close the place down. It would put him on the road. Tony Ryan didn't agree with that and said, no, not close it down, we're going to keep plugging away, we're going to keep going. And eventually Ryan actually sent your man out to Herb, whatever his name is, in Southwest Airlines in, I think, Texas in the United States. He copied the model, or they copied the model from Southwest Airlines in the United States, the low-cost model, and it was very, very successful. But in addition to that, the Minister for Transport at the time, Fianna Fáil, Seamus Brennan, he actually had, or the government generally had, difficulty from time to time with the trade unions in Aer Lingus. And because it's an island nation, they were anxious to keep the unions in check. And they took a landing slot or two from Aer Lingus and gave it to Ryanair, because they were afraid that Ryanair would fold and would fold up the tent. And if they did, then the government would be very much held, well, in a weakened position with one airline flying in and out of the island. So it was in the government's interest, and a policy decision, I suppose, to encourage Ryanair and keep them there for competition reasons and so on, access reasons, infrastructure reasons and competition reasons and so forth. And Seamus Brennan, the Minister for Transport, took a couple of landing slots from Gatwick or Heathrow, or not Gatwick, Stansted or Gatwick, from Aer Lingus, gave them to Ryanair, and the rest was history. The guy who I had met, you probably guessed by now, was Michael O'Leary, and he implemented at Tony Ryan's request or direction the operating and strategic policy of Southwest Airlines in the United States, the low-cost model, implemented it very, very well. But I've always wondered afterwards, if O'Leary had succeeded, what would have happened? Would he have ended up running 2 or 3 supervalues or spars in the greater Dublin area, or whatever? But I always wondered about the role that luck and serendipity and coincidence and good fortune and so on can make in somebody's career. And it always struck me that had Tony Ryan listened to O'Leary, he would have closed Ryanair. He didn't. And had O'Leary done well, really well at Walkinstown, roundabout with his newsagents, he would never have ended up meeting Tony Ryan or going back into, I think it was Coopers and Leibrand, and ultimately became personal assistant to Tony Ryan. But obviously O'Leary made the best of it when he got the break. But it always has, caused me some wonderment and some, you'd be always wondering, was he very lucky? Was he going to make it anyway? If he had succeeded at the newsagents game, at the convenience store game, would he have never have met or worked with Tony Ryan? That brings me on to a book that I'm reading there recently called Outliers by a guy called Malcolm Gladwell. And in this book, Gladwell looks at a number of very, very successful people and tries to identify exactly what it is that gives rise to success. How do people become successful? Is it IQ? Is it genius? Is it talent? Is it hard work? Is it persistence? Is it whatever? I've read the book, and it is a good book, no doubt about it, and it does identify some things that definitely have played or do play a huge role in anybody's success. And if you are to get anything from this video, then I will give you the 3 points that I have found or discovered from reading Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, and I would strongly recommend that you get the book, read it. It's only a short book, but it's good. But there's 3 points that I'd make to you. First one is that success is not due to talent or genius. It's down to circumstances and opportunity. So you must come from the right circumstances. You must get an opportunity, get a break, and let's face it, O'Leary did. And then it also comes down to doing 10,000 hours of practice. So whether it's playing a violin or playing in a band like the Beatles going to Hamburg, or Bill Gates doing computing and computer writing programs and so on from the age of 12, 13, 14, and the opportunity and the access that he had to a computer and in a time and circumstances where nobody had access to computers. Those breaks and those hours, so the circumstances you come from or the background you come from, the opportunity and the 10,000 hours of work, that's key number one. This is what I found from the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. That's number one. Number two is the difference between the high IQ people who succeed and those who didn't succeed was their family circumstances. The better off ones were better able to negotiate ordinary life, and the one very, very important point is analytical intelligence or pure IQ is not practical intelligence. Where you came from matters, and the fact that you are unable to deal with life or negotiate or have a chip on your shoulder is a huge factor. So your circumstances, practical intelligence is critical. And there's a guy in the United States, Langan, I think his name is, or Logan, Langan or Logan. He has an IQ of 195. To put it into context, if Einstein was alive, he'd have an IQ of 150. If the ordinary person has an IQ of 100, this guy has 195. He's off the charts, and yet he didn't really get on all that well, and he works or lives on a farm in the United States. He's perfectly happy, but he never really got on because he came from very, very difficult background, very, very difficult circumstances. He had 3 or 4 half-brothers, and his father was a violent man who beat him, beat the entire family, beat his mother, and so on. And this chap with the IQ of 195 found it difficult to deal with people, found it difficult to display practical intelligence, and actually had a bit of a chip on his shoulder. Who can blame him because of the circumstances that he found himself in and that he was brought up in? But he, the point is that once you get past a certain IQ, the rest of it really doesn't make any difference. In other words, once you have an IQ of 120, 130, 150, you're as likely to win the Nobel Prize for Science as a person with an IQ of 185 or 190. The bottom line is you need to be able to display practical intelligence, and you need to be able to deal with ordinary vicissitudes of life. The third thing, and it's only the third thing that I found, was that hard work is critical. Hard work, so pure hard work, and these are the 3 things that I have found, or that I haven't found, but I've found in this book, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, as the main contributing factors to outstanding success. And he looks at the Beatles, he looks at Bill Gates, he looks at various other people who are very, very successful. Hope you find this video useful. If you do, give it a thumbs up down below, and you may be interested in subscribing to my YouTube channel. I'll put a link down below to the book. As I say, if you find the video useful, you give it a thumbs up.